our Unit 2 reading. I realize it is a lot, and I'll make sure that everyone realizes this from class. So we're going to divide the Gemara into 5 chunks, which I'll quickly show you. You are responsible for preparing 3 of them. You can choose any 3. The chunks are really like kind of set. So this is chunk number 1, the Mishnah and Gemara on Samachet Amud Bet. Chunk number 2 is a few pages down on Ayin Amud Aleph, which is this Mishnah and this Gemara. It's a little bit longer, but the Mishnah is a little bit more simple. This Gemara is not particularly difficult. That's chunk. So again, chunk number 1 was that first chunk section. This is chunk number 2. And I'll say this as we go through the video. Chunk number 3 is these 2 sections, a little bit shorter, but this Gemara is particularly logically, probably one of the tougher logical sections that we did to make sure we fully understand. Chunk number 4 is this Mishnah and Gemara about who he steals from and where he eats it. And this is chunk number 5, which is also kind of long, but it's also the freshest. It's the one that we did most recently. Those are the 5 chunks. You can prepare any 3 that you choose. And when we start our oral exam, you'll just let me know which 3 you did, and we'll do a little bit from each one. Now let's get to the reading. It's just going to be the Gemara, no Rashis. Okay. Ben Sorer Moreh. So this section of ours, we talk about the laws of the wayward and rebellious son. Me'i matai na'aseh ben Sorer Moreh. What is the age range that you can become a ben Sorer Moreh? Mishnah answers, Mishiavi shtei sa'arot, from when you grow 2 pubic hairs, 2 hairs, v'ad she'akif zakan, and until there's a encircling of the beard. And the Mishnah tells us, Hatachton, the lower beard, velo ha'elyon, not the upper beard, meaning the pubic region. Ella shedibru chachamim b'lashon nikiyah. But the chachamim, the sages, spoke in clean language, so they referred to that region of hair as a beard. Shene'emar, now we get the source for this age range. So we said from 2 hairs until full lower beard. Shene'emar ki hiel ish bet. The psukim of Ben Sorer Moreh and the Torah tell us that when a man has a son, and we learn a few things from this. Ben velo bat, that it has to be a son and not a daughter, specifically a son. Ben velo ish, a son and not a man, which we said if you have a full lower beard, you're now a man. And these psukim only apply to a kid. So a kid and not a man, not an adult. And katan patur, a minor is exempt, shelo balachal mitzvot, because he has not entered the rules of mitzvot. And if you don't have 2 hairs yet, you are a katan, you are a minor. Gemara asks, katan minalan de patur. From where, minalan, do we know that a minor is exempt, that a minor cannot be punished as a ben Sorer Moreh? Then what the Gemara does is it asks, it has 2 reasons why this is a dumb question. It's a silly question. Minalan, like rhetorically. From where? Kidikatani tama, as the Mishnah taught the reason. As it said, shalo balichlal mitzvot, because a katan did not enter the rules of mitzvot. So like the Mishnah literally told you why he's exempt. So why are you asking? Vitu, additionally, heicha ashkechan, where do we find de anash hakatuv, that the Torah punishes onesh? So where do we find that the Torah punishes a minor, dehacha, that here libai kra, that we require a pasuk lemiftere, to make him patur, to make him exempt, in a full sentence. Additionally, where else do we find that the Torah ever punishes a minor, that here I need to bring you a specific proof, a specific source? The example we gave in class, if Ruvain is exempt from if it's a known thing that Ruvain does not have to follow any rules at SAR, it would be dumb for me to say, oh, why doesn't Ruvain have to come to advisory? He doesn't have to do anything, and so why are you asking for a specific source for one detail if the Torah never punishes a minor? Now the Gemara says that actually here's why this question makes sense, why it's a fair question. Anan hachikam rinan. Anachnu, this is what we're saying. So this is what we are saying. Atu, since Ben Sorer Moreh al cheto neharag, is he killed for his sin? Al shem sofo neharag. A ben Sorer Moreh is punished for his sof, for his future, for the end of his story. That's what he's killed for. The kevan, and since the al shem sofo neharag, since this punishment is for future sins, afilu katan nami, even a minor also. So meaning maybe we can also punish a minor for future sins. I'll admit, we don't punish a minor for current sins. That's okay. We don't punish a minor for breaking Shabbat and eating non-kosher, but maybe we can punish a minor for future sins. This is a unique case. The Ode, and also ben velo ish, when the Mishnah had said ben velo ish, a kid and not an adult, katan mashma, that implies that a minor kind of could be a ben Sorer Moreh. This is a specific halacha that only applies to kids and not adults. So we said like a katan is a kid, so maybe this is also a special time where a katan would be would be chayav. So we need to answer the question now. What's the source? Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says the name of Rav. Da Amar Kra, the pasuk says, V'chi hiyel ish ben. If a man has a son, and we interpret it to mean ben hasamuch, a kid who is close, ligvurato shel ish, to the strength of a man. So meaning that a minor, an 8-year-old, is not close to the strength of a man. It's not even it's not a fight. It's not. There's no resemblance. A 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, okay, not full strength, but at least they're close. So we come back to we answer that a minor is exempt before 2 hairs. They're not close to the strength of an adult, and that's why they can't become ben sor moreh. But in between, once you have a full or beard, you are an adult. And we said ben velo ish. Once you're an adult, you're not a ben sor moreh. So in this period between 2 hairs and a full lower beard, you are close to the strength of an adult. This is chunk 1. Chunk 2, down a few pages on Ayin Amud Aleph. Me'ematai chayav. So when is he actually liable? Misheochal tretimar basar. So from when he eats a tretimar, which is a unit of measurement of meat, v'yishteh chatzi log yain ha'italki, and he drinks a half log, just a log is also a measurement of Italian wine. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Rabbi Yossi says, maneh basar, that he needs to eat a maneh of meat, another measurement, vilog yain, and a log of wine. So he doubles the amount. And now the Mishnah gives us a bunch of exceptions, a bunch of times where the ben sor moreh is not going to be, even if he eats the meat and drinks the wine, but if he does it in this circumstance, he is off the hook. Achal b'chaburat mitzvah, if he eats in a mitzvah group, like a wedding or a brit milah or a bar mitzvah or something like that. Achal b'ibur hachodesh, it's like a little Rosh Chodesh ceremony when they would make a 30-day month. They would have a little kind of like a kiddush with some cakes and stuff like that. So if he eats it at this little Rosh Chodesh ceremony. Achal ma'aser sheni b'Yerushalayim. So if he's eating ma'aser sheni, which is kind of food that needs to be brought to Yerushalayim every few years as like a saying thank you to Hashem. So if he's eating it that way. Achal nevelot, treifot, shkatzim, and rumasim. You don't have to know exactly what all these are, but these are all different types of unkosher meat, meaning nevelot died without shlita, treifot, the shlita wasn't done properly, shkatzim are like bugs, and rimasim are like rodents, all different types of unkosher food, rats, raccoons, etc. Achal davar shehu mitzvah, if he eats a mitzvah item, the Gemara will get into what that means. V'davar shehu aveira, or an aveira item, so if he's eating a mitzvah food or an aveira food, achal kol ma'achal v'lo achal basar, if he ate any food but that wasn't meat, so pizza, French fries, sushi, shata kol mashkeh v'lo shatayayin, or he drinks a ton but it's not wine, it's beer, or it's scotch, or it's apple juice, eino na'aseh ben sor moreh, he does not become a ben sor moreh ad sheyochal basar v'yishteh yayin, unless he is eating meat and drinking wine. So specifically, in order to become a ben sor moreh, be executed, it needs to be meat and wine. Shnei Amar, as the pasuk says, zolel v'soveh, that he is a glutton and a drunkard. And the Mishnah says, "Va'afal pi she'ein ra'aya l'davar," even though there's no, so it just says glutton and drunkard. That's what his parents call him. And it could be, you can be a glutton by eating too much pizza and a drunkard by drinking too much beer. So the Mishnah says, so even though there's no proof to this idea, there's no proof that glutton and drunkard mean meat and wine, zecher l'davar, there is a hint to that it means meat and wine. Shnei Amar, we quote a pasuk from Mishlei, from Proverbs, al tehi b'soavei yayin b'zolei basar lama, which means don't be among the drunkards of wine or the gluttons of meat. And we know the same shorish, sovei, zolel. In this pasuk, sovei is drunkard refers to wine and glutton refers to meat. So in our pasuk, it must also be that drunkard refers to wine and glutton refers to meat, basar. Okay, Gemara now adds a few more rules. Amar Rav Chanan bar Molda. Amar Rav Huna. Rav Chanan bar Molda says the name of Rav Huna, Eino chayav ad sheikach basar bezol v'yochal. He's not obligated. We don't execute him until he buys meat that is cheap and eats it. Yayin bezol v'yishteh, or cheap wine and drinks it. So Rav Chanan bar Molda says that the meat and wine need to be cheap. Dichtiv zolel v'soveh. As the pasuk says, that he's a glutton and a drunkard, and we said it's not a great proof, even Rashi admits that, the word zol, cheap, is kind of hidden in the word zolel. So first rule, it needs to be cheap. Amar Rav Chanan bar Molda, Amar Rav Huna. Rav Chanan bar Molda, another statement of Rav Chanan bar Molda in the name of Rav Huna. Eino chayav, he's not obligated, ad sheyochal basar chai v'yishteh yayin chai. So he's not obligated until he eats raw meat, uncooked meat, v'yishteh yayin chai, and drinks undiluted wine. He said that wine often was diluted with water back in the day, so he needs to drink undiluted wine. Ini, is this so? Really? Vaha, but Rabba Rav Yosef to Ami Tarvayu. Tarvayu means Shnehem. Both of them, Rabba and Rav Yosef, two big authorities, both say, Achal basar chai, if you ate raw meat, v'shatah yayin chai, and you drink undiluted wine, Eino na'asa ben sorah moreh. Sorry for the bell, I'm reading this in school. He does not become a ben sorah moreh. So an exact refutation of our earlier statement. Rav Chanan bar Mola said it needs to be raw and undiluted. He said, no, if it's raw and undiluted, he's not a ben sorah moreh. Ravina kind of solves the contradiction. Amar Ravina says, Yain chai, when we say raw, when we say undiluted wine, we mean mazig vilo mazig. Diluted, but not fully diluted. So we mean semi-diluted. So yeah, not fully raw, not fully undiluted, but partially. Basar chai, when we say raw meat, bashil vilo bashil, cooked but not fully cooked. We mean so semi-cooked, very rare, something like that. And the Gemara gives an example: kebasar keva da'achle ganve, like flame grill. So this means like meat that is charcoal grilled that is eaten by thieves. That thieves, bandits have to cook their meat very quickly because they don't really have time to sit and prepare the barbecue. So that we're talking about that level of cookedness, just barely cooked. Okay, that was a chunk. Okay, next chunk, a little bit shorter, but a little bit more involved. So the Gemara is trying to understand, what does it mean achal b'chaburat mitzvah? If he eats in a mitzvah, if he eats a mitzvah item. Amar Rabbi Abahu. Rabbi Abahu says, Eino chayav ad sheyochal b'chabura shekula srikin. So Rabbi Abahu says, he is not obligated unless he eats in a group that is entirely made up of bums. So he said that if he's eating in a group, and let's say there's 15 people, all of them need to be bums in order for him to be chayav. But if there's 3 good people and 12 bums, he's not a ben soreh or moreh. Now the Gemara asks, V'ha'anan tnan, but didn't we teach in the Mishnah, achal b'chaburat mitzvah, if you eat in a mitzvah group, eino na'aseh ben soreh moreh. That's what the Mishnah said. So if he's eating at a brit milah, if he's eating at a wedding, he's eating at a bar mitzvah, something like that, he's not a ben soreh moreh. And the Gemara now notices a little bit of disagreement between the Mishnah's approach and Rabbi Abahu's approach. Ta'ama, the reason, according to the Mishnah, that you're exempt, the reason is de mitzvah, that you're doing a mitzvah. The Mishnah cares about, are you performing a mitzvah? Is your group at a brit milah or a wedding? The Mishnah doesn't seem to care about the type of people you're with. And we say, ha, lav mitzvah, but if it's not a mitzvah, if you're not at a mitzvah event, afal gav, even lo, de lav kula srikin, that not everyone is a bum. So meaning that even if you're in a group of 12 bums and 3 good people, if we read the Mishnah, it seems like what we care about is, are you at a mitzvah event or not? If you're at a mitzvah event, great, you're off the hook. If you're not at a mitzvah event, I don't care if it's bums, good people, tzaddikim, or sha'im, you're not at a mitzvah event, and that's how you get exempt. So the Mishnah seems to care about, are you doing a mitzvah or not? Rabbi Abahu seems to care about, are you with good people or not? And so we kind of say that in the end, both are actually follow kind of both of those principles. Ha-kamashmalan, this is what the Mishnah is coming to teach us. When the Mishnah says, chaburat mitzvah, de'afal gav, even though dekulas rikin, even if you're with a group of entirely bums, you're with a group of 15 people, all of them are bums, kevan, since de b'mitzvah ka'asik, you are involved, you are osek in a mitzvah, so you're involved with a mitzvah, lo mimshich, that we're not concerned the behavior is going to continue. So we're saying that the Mishnah means, if you're eating at a mitzvah group, even if everyone's a bum, you're with 15 bums and you're at a brit milah, it's not mimshich. It's not going to continue. It's not going to be addictive. That the power of the mitzvah kind of like, you're involved with the mitzvah, and that's going to kind of be a positive influence. And we also follow Rabbi Abahu that everyone needs to be a bum. That if there's a proper person there, if you're not, so if you're at a mitzvah, you're always off the hook. And if you're not at a mitzvah, even just one good person in your group can kind of get you off the hook, because we think that one good person will have a positive influence on you. Okay, now we go down a little bit more simple over here. So now the Mishnah said, Achal davar shehu mitzvah v'davar avera. You eat a mitzvah item or an avera item. So davar mitzvah, tanchumei avelim. So eating a mitzvah item, what does that mean? Tanchumei avelim. That means the food that is for comforting mourners, like Shiva house, the meal after a funeral. So if he's eating that food, then he is not a ben soreh or moreh. Because we said he's kind of doing a mitzvah. Davar avera, if he's eating an avera item, tanit tzibur. So what's that? That's like food on a fast day. So if he's eating his meat and his wine on Tisha B'Av, he's not a ben soreh or moreh. The Gemara wonders, V'tam amai, what's the reason? Why are you exempt if you're eating an avera food? Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Einenu shomea bekolenu, that his parents come to court and say he doesn't listen to our voice, meaning the voice of the parents. Bekolenu, our voice, vilo bekolo shel makom. But it doesn't say anything about listening to Hashem's voice. If you're doing an Aveirah, not only are you disobeying your parents' voice, you're disobeying Hashem's voice. That's a separate issue. That's not a ben soreh or moreh category. So that's why you are off the hook if you are eating an Avera item or non-kosher food, things like that. Okay, end of that chunk. Excuse the bell again. Next chunk, this Mishnah and Gemara over here. Ganav Mishel Aviv va'achal b'rshut Aviv. If you steal from your father and you eat on your father's property. So we said that there's two variables. Who are you stealing from? Who are you getting this money from? And where are you eating it? So Ganav Mishel Aviv, he steals from his father's money, va'achal b'rshut Aviv, and he eats it on his father's property. Mishel Acherim, so if you steal from others, va'achal b'rshut Acherim, and you eat it on others' property. Mishel Acherim, you steal from others, va'achal b'rshut Aviv, and you eat it on your father's property. In all three of these cases, eino na'aseh ben sorer moreh. You do not become a ben sorer moreh. You only become executed ad sheyignov Mishel Aviv v'yochal b'rshut Acherim, unless you steal from your father and eat it on others' property. You can ignore this red highlight over here. That's a mistake from the other class. We didn't do that line of Gemara. So ending over here, v'yochal b'rshut Acherim. And he eats it on others. So the only time you're obligated is if you steal from your father and eat it on others' property. The Gemara now is going to explain, case by case. Ganav mishel aviv, if you steal from your father, va'achal b'rshut aviv, and you eat it on your father's property. Afal gav, even though dishchiach lei, it's common for you, it's available for you. We said stealing from your father is very easy. You know where he keeps his wallet. So that's a very easily accessible source of money to steal. But eat. So even though, so maybe we're concerned you're going to get addicted because you can steal the money all the time, you're afraid. If you're eating it on your father's property, you're afraid of getting caught. Your dad could walk in, your parents could walk in at any moment and say, where'd you get that steak from? Where'd you get the money from? So since there's kind of fear involved, we're not concerned that that's going to become an addictive behavior. Mishel acherim, but if you steal from others, va'achal b'rshut acherim, and you eat it on others' property, so afagav delo ba'it, even though you're eating it on others' property, there's no reason to be afraid. You can sit and relax. It'll be a very positive experience. Maybe it'll be addictive. Lo shliach lei. In this case, you're stealing from others, and stealing from others is difficult. It requires planning, and you could get caught and things like that. So we're not concerned that you're going to continue the behavior because it's kind of inaccessible. It's not easy to do. V'chol shekain, and obviously, clearly, Mishel acherim, if you're stealing from others, va'achal b'rshut aviv, and you're eating on your father's property, you have two reasons why it's not going to continue. Delo shliach lei, it's not available for him. You're stealing from others, which is a difficult crime to do. Uba'it, and you're afraid. You're afraid your dad's going to figure out where'd you get that steak from the whole time because you're eating it on his property. So we conclude ad sheyignov Mishel aviv v'yochal b'rshut acherim. So until you steal from your father and eat it on others' property, dishchiach lei, that case it's available to you. You know where your dad keeps his wallet. V'lo ba'it, and there's no fear involved because you're eating it in others' property. And last chunk over here, haya aviv rotzeh v'imo eino rotzeh. So now he's done all the he's done all the wrong things. He's eaten the meat and drank the wine, and he's done it in the wrong place with a group of bums, and he steals it from his father and eats it in public property. Now, if his father wants to bring him to court, rotzeh v'imo eino rotzeh, but his mother does not want to bring him to court, aviv eino rotzeh, or the flip side, his father does not want to bring him to court, v'imo rotzeh, and his mother does. So only one parent wants to bring him to court to get executed. Eino na'as ben sorer moreh. He does not become a ben sorer moreh. Ad sheyehu shnehem rotzin, unless both of them want to bring him to court together. Rabbi Yehuda says, Im lo haita imo ri'uya la'aviv, if his mother was not, so lo haita imo, his mother was not ri'uya, fitting, appropriate, to his father, eino na'aseh ben sorer moreh. So if your parents are not appropriate for one another, and the Gemara has to figure out what that means, you do not become a ben sorer moreh. The Gemara now wonders, mai eina ri'uya, what does it mean to not be appropriate for one another? Ilema, if you want to say, and this type of ilema introduces an answer that will always be rejected. Ilema chayave kritot v'chayave mitot beitin. Maybe what it means that your parents aren't appropriate means your parents are involved in a forbidden relationship, such that their relationship should be obligated for karet or even the death penalty. In a weird case, your parents are siblings. You're born out of incest or something like that. Maybe that means that your parents aren't appropriate for each other, and therefore you can't become ben sorer moreh because maybe we don't really consider them your parents if they're in a forbidden relationship. We reject that. Sof, at the end of the day, avlua ninhu, your father is your father, like aviv avivhu, your father is your father. Ve'imei ninhu, and your mother is your mother. That's so at the end of the day, even if your parents are in a forbidden relationship, they're still biologically your parents. It doesn't undo the level of how that they're considered your parents. So what do we say instead? Ella, what does it mean to be fitting or appropriate for each other? Bishavel aviv kamar, that they need to be similar, they need to be identical, they need to have actual resemblance to one another. That's what it means. So if your parents are not identical to one another, then you cannot become a ben sorer moreh. and a Braita supports this. Tanya Nami Hachi, we additionally learn like this in a Braita. Rabbi Yehuda says, Imlo haita imo, if your mother was not shavel aviv, equal to your father, the same as your father, bikol, in their voice, they have to sound the same, uve mar'eh, and appearance, uve koma, and in height, eino na'aseh ben sorer moreh, you do not become a ben sorer moreh. Meaning that your parents need to have similar voices, have similar appearances, and have similar heights. Very, very unlikely. Maybe you get one of the three, maybe you get two of the three, but how many people do we know whose parents both look the same and sound the same and are the same height? Incredibly unlikely. My Tama, what's the reason for Rabbi Yehuda's statement? Da Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Einenu shomea bekolenu. So it says that the son does not listen to our voice. And this voice here is singular. Bekolenu, our voice. So that means that their voice must be the same. Once we require that their voices are the same, mar'eh v'koma, appearance and height, nami ba'inan shavin. Also, those must also be equal. So if we're interpreting from the pasuk that their voices have to be the same, obviously their appearances have to be the same. And then the Gemara wonders, Keman Azla Hadatanya, who is this Braita following? Who is this Braita going like? This is where Azal literally means halach. So who is this Braita kind of following by? The Braita reads, Ben Sorer Moreh lo hayav lo atid lihiyot. A wayward and rebellious son, that this halacha of executing this like adolescent kid never happened and never will happen. V'lama nechtav, so why is it written? Why do we have a halach? Why do we have psukim that will never happen? Drosh v'kabel schar, so we can learn them and gain reward and learn something, appreciate something, learn more Torah. So this Braita, which says that this is an entirely theoretical halacha, who is this person following? Kiman, kimo mi, like who? Ki Rabbi Yehuda. Like Rabbi Yehuda, who just said that the parents need to be identical, because Rabbi Yehuda is clearly setting up rules that will make this purely theoretical. Yes, is it theoretically possible for it to happen? Yes, but actually, statistically, it's impossible. You're never going to have parents who look, sound, and appear the same, and who both want to bring him to court, and he has to, we follow all of the other, we said he has to steal it from the right person, and he has to eat it in public, and it can't be with a mitzvah group, and everyone has to be a bum, and everyone, etc., all the rules that we've introduced. So, that, like we said, there's clearly an idea that these are going to be theoretical halachot. So, again, one last time. This was the chunk. This is chunk number 5, I think. Going backwards, chunk number 4. Chunk number 3, these two sections of Gemara. Chunk number 2, this Mishnah and Gemara. And chunk number 1 on the first Amud, this Mishnah and Gemara. Good luck, guys.